Would you like me to set the scene over it? Okay. Just procedurally too, I've checked with Claire that these amendments, understanding orders, can now become the actual substantive. So rather than tangling us up in eternal knots, this can go out as it is. We've also had some tweaking with staff, so that's part of that. That means those amendments, which are now the substantive, are slightly different from your circulated email from me. If I just set the scene, firstly, to begin with the question, why do this? Why look at the concept of putting residential red zone housing units onto council land? And really the answer is just about in the question, the fact that if you're looking at a social housing possibility in order to begin to meet the challenge of affordable rental in the city, then that's one way you could do it. We have a desperate housing shortage, but we have a housing supply. Couldn't you actually pick those houses up and put them onto public land for the purpose of providing, in this case, affordable housing through social housing? So that's what we're attempting to do here. We have a lot of support from Sarah to do this. We still have a supply of houses, but the clock is ticking. The residential red zone houses are being demolished or going as flat packs to Auckland, onto farms, to other TAs that perhaps have less restrictive rules than we do. They're going anywhere but on our own council land. And so I'm putting it to you that we have an opportunity. The amendments, as you'll see up there, follow not only the Housing Committee meeting, but they come out of other informal meetings that we've had. So you can see them there. The first is basically that overarching principle of supporting any effort to relocate housing, and that's an important principle which we need to embrace if we can. Number one, I've already spoken to that. Sustainability is a huge element of this, as recognised by the Housing Committee. Why would you let houses be demolished? And, you know, I actually think about this. What will future generations say to us when they knew we had all these houses and we let them be demolished at a time of crisis? Number two, we do recognise there are other means of providing social housing, and we need to test that, as we need to test this through an open procurement process. Number three talks about a delegation to the GM Community Services and the CFO in consultation with Pauline and me over the selection of council land for a small-scale trial of up to 10 units. We're proposing that $2 million from the $9 million unallocated funds be used for that. Staff are here, they can speak to any element of these amendments if you wish to ask them. Staff are already working with the Insurance Council of New Zealand and Sarah, and houses have been identified. There are over 200 which are available at the rate in which, and if you talk to quantity surveyors, at the rate of rebuilt houses in the last 3 years since the February earthquake, if we were of a mind to suddenly pick up 200, we'd just about be catching up to the number of new builds in this city. And we could just about do that in well, possibly less than a year. So item 6, that the provision of up to 10 houses, either from relocation or by other means, is to go out to tender with the aim that council can make a decision at its earliest opportunity. We've suggested a tender timeline. Pauline and I have sat down, we've tried to be reasonable over that. Again, staff may have some input. So that's the end of my speech, and if you wish to throw that open, that's obviously your call.
Thank you, and I congratulate you, Councillor Livingston. That was very well put. I just think another thing we need to emphasise here, along with sustainability, which is one of the key facets, is the time factor. We've got urgency here. If we've got some space on some of our land, let's pick one of these or 2 or 10 up and put them in. We can do it quickly, very quickly, compared to the other stream that we're doing, which is the intensification, which is a longer term process, stretching out as far as 2018. So this is not in conflict, but it's alongside, and I think we do have to keep that time factor in mind. We could have families in those homes in about 4 months if we really get moving. So I support.
Thank you. I strongly support this. I just want to go back in time a little bit. That after the earthquake, one of the international speakers that we brought over was Kit Miyamoto from Japan and the US. And one of the things that stuck with me and what he said very early on was actually, in terms of a disaster, it's not just about it's not just about the human consequences. It's actually also about the environmental consequences. And that the earthquake has been a huge natural disaster, but it's also had a huge environmental cost. And one of the things that he was talking about was the idea that we would demolish so many buildings, the embedded carbon in these buildings, the embedded energy that we lose by destroying all these things that have taken energy and resources to build is a huge cost to our environment. And so I totally support this. This unfortunately should have been done a long time ago. It is absolutely upsetting to see so many properties that could be lived in, that could be reused, could be recycled, so many valuable materials, so many heritage and cultural and character places that are being destroyed. For what? For what? So this is a really great initiative. This is a really important thing to be looked at. And I think if we can take a leadership role, then we should do that. It's incredibly important. It would be really neat to actually have a carbon clock in our city. I know they've got one in New York, for example, that counts the carbon that's been emitted into the atmosphere. And it would just be really, I think, quite stunning to see that as we see the widespread destruction and demolition of buildings and houses throughout our city, what the cost is to our environment. And if we can mitigate that in any way, then I think it is incumbent on us for future generations to make sure that we get a sustainable recovery, both in terms of people being able to afford and have places to live, and also for our environment. So thank you to the work you've done on this. I am strongly supportive of it.
Thank you. I wonder if staff could just give us an explanation on item 4, the $9 million of unallocated funds, and in fact whether there are any proposals for that $9 million and what impacts that may have on that budget.
Yep, happy to, Councillor East. In fact, it's probably slightly misleading, item 4. The housing fund is made up primarily of a bucket of money that's in there for maintenance and repairs, etc., and that's about that $9 million. And there is a program of work relating to that $9 million. However, in that bucket, we also have what's left of the $21 million that we were given by EQC as a step towards settlement quite some time ago. Now, of that, we've spent about $7 million of it doing various things, and there's about another $4 or $5 million of that that's already committed to other projects that we're ongoing with that Council has approved. But there is about $7 million sitting in there from that EQC money. Now, that's the money that we've used, for example, to build the new units at Dundee Place. It's the money we've used to do the new build at Knightsbridge. And we would see that that was an appropriate use of it, and that this would be seen, for us anyway, as replacing lost housing stock in the social housing portfolio, which is a perfectly legitimate use of that money. So I think the intention, although the wording isn't quite right there, I think the intention and the ability to access that funding is fine with the direction of Council.
Well, look, I want to strongly support the recommendations, and I want to thank the staff too for all the work that you've done with Councillor Livingston and Councillor Cotto. I think it's terrific, and it just fits, the social housing part fits so neatly alongside the housing entity that Vicky Buck described before. So I think it's really exciting. I think it should be cost effective in that with the tender process should clarify the cost effectiveness of it. That is like a check and balance for these resolutions.
Just a quick question. In terms of the social housing, that is ring-fenced from the ratepayer? So this is all costed to run sustainably on its own. So do we have an idea what the rents might be that are going to be charged?
No, not at the moment, but that will come back to council for a decision. We'll be able to tell you what rent we need to do to...
So would it be sensible to do that in advance?
Given we haven't had the tenders in yet, it's difficult to know what that cost will be. But we can come back to you with that reasonably quickly.
Okay, because you've got some numbers here on page 79 around how much it might cost for the relocations versus new builds, etc. So you must be able to work out roughly what you might have to charge.
Yeah, we could. I don't have that figure here at the moment.
Right. Okay.
Always
yeah.
invariably under market level. Will always be much cheaper.
Yep.
The figures, I have some issues there, but that's fine. We can.
I mean, I think it's a lovely idea, but we just have to be very careful that all of this is financially sustainable. So if we're going to be actually driving this, we've got to be very clear about what our objectives are and how much it's going to cost us.
Be coming back with all of the financial details before any sign off and before any agreements are entered into. We're not delegating. We are delegating for a small scale trial.
If I might also add, the tender process timeline that's been laid out by councillors is. I haven't taken advice from my staff as to whether that's actually achievable. It looks extremely tight to me. I would be surprised if that was achievable in that very tight time frame, but we will give back advice on that. But I think it's, we're at the end of February now. To have this all done, dusted, tendered, completed by the end of March seems to me to be ambitious.
Okay, but the actual decision about it, can you scroll up? Just, I can't see that part of it. 6. Oh, sorry, scroll down. Oh, sorry, so the timetable is no longer included in it.
Oh.
Okay, so that's just a note.
Yeah.
I had a timetable of a month from now, basically,
Yeah.
for tender to come back to here.
Yeah, but that may not be possible. But
No.
but what we've got is that, but the provision actually comes back to council for a final decision.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Yes.
It does.
So-
There's still filters to go.
Sorry, I'm just a little confused now. Number 3 says delegate the selection of council social. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. So they're going, but it's still going to come back here.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, we need to identify the land so a tenderer can say, on this bit of land, it will cost us X.
X amount. Yep. All right. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. And we now move on to the report of the community.